Welcome back to a Book a Day podcast. I am talking to you from the Himalayas, and the book that I am discussing currently is also called Himalaya, with the subtitle called Adventures, Meditations, Life. So there are three sections. The first one that we discussed in the previous episode was on adventures in the Himalayas. Today we'll talk about the second section, which is about meditations. That is, meditative reflections that many writers have shared over the years. There's a lot of spirituality associated with these mountains. Obviously, there is a lot of religious significance as well. But generally speaking, anyone who comes to these mountains in the Himalayas, they have this feeling of the sublime, something grander than the rest of the world. But this grandeur, it doesn't make you feel small. It somehow makes you feel that you are a part of this vast cosmos. And there is this feeling of belongingness. And it's quite natural that you will feel, if not entirely, at least some elements of spirituality when you spend some time here. So, without wasting any time, I'm going to briefly discuss some of these chapters which talk about this meditative aspect, certain reflections on the Himalayas. The first one is a chapter called Just a Strand in Shiva's Hair, Face to Face with the Excess of the World. It is written by Arundhati Subramaniam, who is a writer and a poet. And she beautifully describes this spiritual feeling that you get when you're spending time with the Himalayas, in this case, especially the Kailash. So I'm going to read a few passages, and I hope you'll be able to connect with that. So here it goes. A mountain is a mountain, or so I have always believed. Despite all that Sadhguru says about scaffolds and knowledge repositories, a mountain is still a mountain, as far as I can see. It is true, some are endowed with more height, more girth, more grandeur, but in this pageant spread out before us, Kailash is not short on competition. But there is the obvious difference. Even with the sinister blanket of cloud that hangs heavily across our landscape, it is evident that this mountain allows itself some distinction. Amid these mountains of snow-leathered green and garnet, this is the only granite mountain we can see. Dark, forbidding, cloud-smothered, it stands implacably, a postcard pinned to our creamy window, a reminder of why we are here. Meru, Shambhala, Sky Pillar, Shivalinga. I don't know any of that. But the view at my window is proof that Kailash exists. Or perhaps it is just that we have entered the postcard ourselves. That seems equally possible. Breathing this rarefied air, it is possible that we have stumbled into subtler dimension and are now postcard pilgrims about to participate in a collective optical illusion, about to discover that the divide between fact and fiction has always been obscure, cloudy, snow congealed. The Tibetans believe, in fact, that this still point in a turning world is actually a visitor, an alien, a flying mountain that had to be tethered to the earth by the gods and finally secured by the Buddhas 4 decisive footprints. It is a reluctant visitor too. In Kali Yuga, the age of degeneration, it yearns to be elsewhere and is likely to take wing at any time. For all its solidity, that is also easy to believe. One day, the denizens of this hotel could well wake up to find their windows have turned into empty slates, wiped clean of aeons of visual habit. And it is for this that we made this trip. I reflect as I stand at our first floor landing before breakfast. It is for this black convulsion of earth with its endless train of legend, its reputation stretching across millennia, way back into ancestral memory. Is it worth the journey? I decide to suspend my judgment. I might not be able to take the burden of anticlimax right now. I don't have the breath for it. All I know over breakfast is this: I'm colder than I've ever been. Mansarovar is a tropical paradise in comparison. I yearn nostalgically for my tent and its sleeping blanket. I cannot eat a bite. I'm down to tea and periodic infusions of hot water and honey. The slightest exertion makes me aware of my lungs like never before. The bathrooms are unspeakable. The yard in front of the hotel is a picturesque riot of human and yak shit. The rain is incessant. Everyone around me looks the way I feel: bewildered, battered, in varying states of medical disrepair. Two of our group has been on oxygen all night. Conversation is sporadic. The sound of Isha music team is rehearsing, trying feebly, if valiantly, to infuse some nirguna bhakti into the dining room. It's difficult to ignore the wheezing breaths and occasional nosebleeds amid the strains of Gandharva's bhajans. And yet, oddly enough, we are whole. Smiles are wan and they haven't disappeared yet. If I could sit motionless through the day nursing a mug of tea, I tell myself it's possible that I will survive. My breath is reasonably even when I sit still. The cold could be manageable if I don't leave this space. So that was that. That was the passage from the chapter. I hope you can understand the weather there, understand what it means to face the Kailasha. Of course, it's not easy being there, it's a challenge. But also, I believe that's something that adds to the adventure. And it's also, even if it's a meditative or a spiritual experience, I'm sure the adventure has much to do with it. In all these pilgrimages, these sites, when the challenge is harder, the more beautiful, more serene it feels once you get there and once you come back. It feels wonderful. So that was the chapter on the Kailasha. The next chapter is about the monsoon. Monsoon in the mountains, it is called, written by Paul Brunton. And right now, monsoons, they have been going on for quite a while, although they are just about receding now. But I think it's also a good time to read this chapter. So let me read a few passages from this chapter. And once again, I hope you can relate with the weather, especially if you've been visiting the mountains or have spent time here or lived here, then I'm sure you'll be able to relate with it much more. Okay then, here we go. Monsoon in the mountains. Some unaccountably early precursors of the still distant rainy season make their sudden appearance. Himalaya is exceedingly erratic these days. Each day provides plenty of varying samples, both good and bad. Unexpected changes begin in that near horizon, where sky meets earth in a white broken line of fleecy cloud and jagged peak and fallen snow. The only advantage we derive from the fitful rains is the easing of our water problem. So far, the essential liquid has to be carried from the nearest bubbling spring, which is more than a quarter mile away. But now, all that needs to be done is to put our bulging brass water pot outside the door and let the elements kindly fill it. And this is eventually done, so heavy is the rainfall, yet it is only sporadic and unreliable. The nights are sometimes bitterly cold, especially to one who has come from the torrid south. For with the fall of day clouds sail like ships over the summits and frequently foregather in the sky. The terrific Tibetan winds come whistling over the snowy range and beat against my bungalow. Disagreeable, murky mists often make their appearance and blot out the landscape, leaving the building desolate and lone in space after they have rolled around it. Everything then disappears from sight. But all this is nothing to a Himalayan storm. It is one of the worst I've ever seen for intensity, and yet so impressive as to receive a touch of grandeur. Twice this week we have been storm bound. It begins with the approach of night. An ominous change occurs to the temperature, which drops and drops. I barricade myself against the invading cold by changing into a woolen shirt and a thick, high collared sweater, and then peer through the door panel to watch the brooding storm break. Soon, peals of terrific thunder break out all along the Himalayan range with the fury of detonating shells, until it seems that the mountains are being undermined, exploded, and shattered by violent subterranean forces. Yet I know that the quartz and granite and gneiss, which form the core of the Himalayas, will resist the erosions of nature. But the magnificent and really beautiful displays of lightning which precede the noise provide ample compensation. No mere zigzags of electric light are these, but large circling masses of white phosphorescence that glow weirdly against the surrounding blackness. A fierce, gusty gale shakes the tops of my tall fir trees and makes the branches sough hither and thither as it blows along with the speed of an express train. The blustering winds beat down the valleys and thresh the frailer trees off their leaves. Rain comes down in bucketfuls, large drops that will fall furiously and unabatedly for some hours. To complete the bombardment, the fierce patter of hailstones, each as big as playing marbles, sounds all over the roof. These hailstones can be very destructive. Sometimes they even reach the size of walnuts. After a heavy storm, I find the little bodies of few birds near the bungalow, as an earnest of what has been done farther along the ridges, while tall deodar lies struck dead and splintered by lightning. So that was about the monsoon, how insanely challenging it can be. And of course, it's difficult at times. But that's what you live with when you live with nature. So then we come to a chapter, interesting chapter, in fact, on shamans in Nepal, written by Wolfgang Buscher. And here we see that certain rituals being practiced by the shamans, certain supernatural experiences that the writer has. And it's an interesting, fascinating chapter. Some of you might find it exotic, and I'm sure you'll like it. So I'm going to read a couple of passages where the writer has this experience where he's witnessing what the shamans were doing there. So let me read it for you. Here we go. In the middle of the circle they formed, next to the fire, the mask was dancing. Its dark red eyes were bulging. Black and red-brown yak hair hung down from it. Its bare teeth were a rotten yellow, as if they had been buried for a long time. A face came back from the grave. It was larger than life, but was worn by a man. His head and chest were completely hidden by the mask, by the ancient, terrifying face. There was no doubt that it was the old shaman king who was bearing it, and this word was exactly right. He bore it like a burden. It bent him double. He served the mask, and his service made it seem strangely alive. Whenever it came dancing closer, the circle shrank back. Was I oversensitive to the horror of this because I had woken up so suddenly? Perhaps. Yet what I saw was not a man who this once put on a mask like a hat that he could then take off again. A creature was giving birth to itself before my eyes, and this birth was voracious. I was watching the masked demon devour the old shaman. It had already gobbled up the upper body. It still needed the scampering lower body for as long as the dance lasted, before finally swallowing up the old man entirely. I glanced at the doctor. He was as spellbound by the dance as I was. What was he thinking? Now he looked round as if searching for something. Our eyes met. There was a hint of a grin and a shake of the head. Then he was once more in the thrall to the scene by the fire. I turned to watch it too, the slightly built man under the mask, under the yoke. For that's what it was, a yoke, a holy yoke, I grant you. Someone from the village selected to give up his normal life to serve the village as a living membrane stretched between this world and the other. Now I saw what a shaman was. I saw it in front of me. It was a burden, a duty, a human sacrifice. The aim of this nighttime dance was to give birth over and over again to a messenger, half man, half non-man, who served the village on the one hand and the demons on the other when they met to negotiate. The village fed off its shaman just as the mask fed off the person wearing it. With him it came alive. Set aside, it was just a piece of wood. They had been woken in the night by the man into whose old loving eyes I had already looked once today when he brought me back from the blackness during the stop at the mountain meadow. It was he who had blown the shrill death trumpet that had woken me just before. Who else? Someone handed it to him now. He took it in both hands, spoke to it, blew on it, came towards me. I moved out of his way, pushed open the door I was leaning on and realized as I stumbled out that this was nothing to do with me. He didn't even see me. The ritual dance was over. Now for the main event. Everyone followed the shaman outside. He walked past me and disappeared out of the light from the open door, and I heard that sound again. He held up the flute. It gleamed white in the night. He held it up to the mouth of the mask and blew the thigh-bone trumpet. It was the doctor speaking. He stood beside me now. He said, "Consider yourself lucky. There are very few people in the world who are not from these mountains who have heard a shaman blow the bone flute." "A human bone?" I asked. "Of course. What is he going to do?" "There is a burial place here, where the dead are buried in the traditional Tibetan way. They are hacked to pieces. That's where he's going now. Demons love those places. There he'll take off his clothes and summon the demons with the thigh-bone trumpet, naked, wearing only the mask and holding the furba, Shiva's weapon, the thunderbolt, and fight them." "Why in heaven's name just for the sake of fighting?" I asked. "The people here have asked him too. Disease, madness, their livestock are dying. He asks, 'Has anyone died recently?' They answer, 'Yes, so and so.' He says, 'It is the ghost of the dead person that is tormenting you. The ghost will not go anywhere. It belongs.' He will say to him, 'Go, you no longer belong here.' The ghost will refuse. They will fight. That is how it always is. A great deal of misfortune hangs over this house. Now do you understand how lucky we are?" "Who says he'll win the fight?" I asked. "No pain, no gain." The doctor gave a hearty surfer's laugh. "You see this as a kind of a sport, do you?" I asked. "A little bit, yes, but don't worry. This is not the first time he's done this. And he's got the mask. Even I've never seen such a powerful mask before. It can kill demons. There are not many who can wear it. Out of maybe 100 shamans hereabouts, he's the only one who owns a mask like this. No, he won't be defeated tonight." The mask walked away. The people followed it as far as they dared. Then they turned back, awe and fear written on their faces. He was their last hope, the man who now went towards the dead to wrestle with God knows what. Nobody went home, nobody slept. We sat in the sooty cave house, and the conversation with the doctor got underway again. Whispers in the silence of this house, so far away from the houses we knew. So that was it. That were a few extracts from the chapter on shamans in Nepal. And quite fascinating, isn't it? I'm not sure if you have watched that movie called Kantara, but that's exactly what it sounds like. The way shaman is doing his ritual and the way he runs away from the ritual dance and goes somewhere far away into the deep forest. It's a very similar scene. That one was the practice in the south of India, I guess Karnataka, and this one is in the Himalayas in Nepal. But of course, you can see certain connections here, how some of these rituals they are there. And this ritual particular was from the Tibetan culture. So as you can see, quite some interesting reads here in this section as well. We were talking about the meditation sections, but you can see how meditations, these chapters written on the meditations on Himalayas, they range from the ancient texts where there's a praise and mention of Himalayas to modern readings, modern writings, where the writer is describing his or her experiences of these mountains, and then going into these religious and cultural rituals where once again we enter the realms of deities, gods, and demons, and all this. It's fascinating to see the list. So I hope you really enjoyed this, and we will continue the discussion on this book in the next episode as well, where we will talk about the third section, which is life in the Himalayas. I'm quite familiar with it because I live here, but I'm sure many of you would be curious to know, and especially what the writers have written about it, about the life in the Himalayas. How does it sound like? So I'll be back with the third section, and I'll discuss this with you. So, with that, I'll take your leave. Thank you very much for listening. I'll catch you the next time. Thank you.